Okay guys, welcome back. Here we go into what hopefully should be our final video for at least this cap build here. You can see here that we've got a couple of things to pay attention to. One is some of the construction line work that we made in the very first part of the design. This line in particular is one that we should pay attention to. We've got to make a part line here that's going to separate the top of the water bottle cap from the bottom. This will be where this piece slips up so you can take a drink out of the thing. So that part line is a little bit hard to figure out because obviously it changes size depending on the position of the top, but we can go ahead and assume for this video that it's about a 1/2 millimeter. So what we're going to do is we're going to just go over to our side view here, to the front view, and we're just going to use this construction line as a guide onto where to place the line work we need to do a split on this surface. Okay, so we're not going to do a trim, we're going to do a split. So we'll just grab a poly line right here, and we'll just turn on the grid snap and just draw a line that strikes through the entire model, just about like that. Right click to drop the tool, and then you take this line and just cut and paste it with a Control C and a Control V, and you see that gumball there flashes and turns on and off, and that's the signal that the cut and paste has done its job. Also, you can see it happen up here in the command line if you pay attention to that. So turn the grid snap off to get a little bit more control on this, and just place it about 1/2 millimeter. There you go. Grab these two curves and then just place them somewhere in the neighborhood of that construction line. And then be careful about these curves. You're going to want to save those because later if you want to redo this part line or change the size or anything, these are the curves that you're going to use to do it. Okay? All right. Okay, so I said before we're going to do a split, and the split tool is under the standard tab, and it's right next to the trim tool here, so it just looks like that, and works in a very similar way to the trim tool. Just turn it on by clicking the button, select the objects you want to split, and that's going to be the whole body here, so select that and then just hit enter, and then you're going to select these two curves, hold down shift to select both of them, and then hit enter because you're defining those as the cutting object. And you can tell that it worked because you'll get a little bit of a difference in line weight here from where the surface got split. So, you know, here's your sidewall line weight, and then you can see the darker lines here show you that the surface has actually been split. Just going to go over here to perspective view and then change over to wireframe to just look at that a little bit more close up. Okay, cool. All right, now go ahead and try to grab that surface there and see if you can select just the sliver of surface that you've split off. And in my model, somewhere along the way, I created a problem for myself where although the split has performed appropriately and correctly, it still isn't separated from the rest of the model. So I played around with this a little bit previous to this recording and found out that somehow I've got a group sitting on this surface here, so I have to ungroup the surface. Okay, now you may be tempted to explode the surface, and that is another option for separating surfaces that are joined together, and I can go ahead and try that here. If I just go to explode and then select this and then try to go explode, you can see here in the command line it says I exploded the poly surface into 140 surfaces. But the problem is when I go to select that one sliver, it still selects the entire thing, which is not the way explode is supposed to work. So that's a little bit of a hiccup. We'll call it a glitch or something like that. But in this scenario, if you try to explode your surfaces and they don't do what you want, you may have this grouping problem that I've run into here on my model. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do an ungroup, and I can type it into the command line here, or I can go to edit, groups, ungroup, and then the command line will give me a prompt on what to do next. It'll say select objects to ungroup, and I can select that object there and hit that, and we'll go ahead and see if it worked, and it did. So there you go. Okay, so that was a fairly frustrating problem to run into on my first attempt at this video. I'm not used to that happening. Usually the explode tool will work, and even beyond that, usually this split tool will do that also, where even if you have a set of surfaces that are joined or grouped into one, the split tool will split whatever you designate off of that group. But in this odd case, it didn't work that way, so you get a little instruction on just what to do if you ever run into that scenario. So I'm going to pop back over to the front view here, and I'm going to use the gumball to scale this surface inward, and we're going to be making the inner wall of the part line here. So front view, and then just zoom in on that gumball there, and this red scale box will be the thing we're going to want to edit. Hold down Shift to do a uniform scale, and just drag that edge in about halfway, and take a look at the other side to confirm that it did do the same thing on the other side, and then maybe even zoom in a little bit more to take a look at this thing that happens too when you do that. So you can see here that the surface has not only scaled inward like that, but it's also scaled downward a little bit here. So that'll just create a small problem that we're going to want to fix when we try to connect the surfaces together here. If we go over to the perspective view and change to we'll say rendered mode, and then zoom in here, you can see there is a little bit of a gap in between where we made that interior wall and the exterior there, and we're going to want to fill that in. So in order to do that correctly, we're going to want to extend this interior surface a little bit, and we can do that from the front view, again using the gumball for that. So just zoom in, because you can see once you're zoomed out a little bit, it's hard to see that there's that problem. And you know, full disclosure, I didn't catch it at first myself, so it took a little while before I figured out what was going on. So just go to the gumball, grab the blue scale box there, and just drag it out until it passes over this black line here, and that way you know you've just got a little bit of an overlap for what we're going to do next. Double check here the corners that you're overlapping. Good. Okay, and then go to perspective, and the tool we use for this is probably going to be the good old surface from Planar Curves, this guy here. Just select this edge here and go ahead and hit OK, and it's a little easier to see maybe if we go for maybe a ghosted view. Probably wireframe is the easiest to see. Yeah, so you can see the surface that we just added there just fills in that entire planar surface. And because we've got this overlap thing going on with this surface, see how those two are overlapped to each other, we'll be able to do a nice little trim right there and trim them together so that they're perfect. Let's go ahead and just do one more planar surface. I'll go up here to this command line area, and I'll just right click, and I'll go down to surface from Planar Curves, and just take a quick look at my model here. There you go, that's the one. And then just confirm it by just clicking that top surface. There she is, nice and pretty. Perfect. Okay, cool. And so now just put myself into an orientation where this thing's kind of easy to see. Hold on. Somehow that seems to be best for me. Turn off any additional line work you don't need. There you go. All right, and what we're going to do here is a trim. We'll go trim, select the cutting object as the first command. This is going to be the cutting object, and it's going to trim these two surfaces off. So we'll say enter, and then we're going to go and trim the interior of that surface and the interior of this surface also. And did that work? Boy, it sure doesn't seem like it, but maybe it did. Escape. Aha. Was it these curves that make it look like it didn't work, and it actually did? Let's take a look. Let's hide these curves. These are the curves we used to perform our split. Remember that? Let's take those curves and put them on our curves layer, and there's our confirmation. So this is why wireframe mode really does come into handy for these sorts of tight operations, is because we're looking for that line right there to stop when it hits this surface here. Same thing down here, needs to stop there. But with these curves shown, it looked like the surface still continued all the way across, but it didn't. Our trim worked. Okay, a couple more little trim operations to perform. Okay, we'll go back to the trim tool. All right, this time we're going to use this and this surface, the two new surfaces that we just made as the trim tool. Those are our cutting objects. And we're just going to trim off this little tab down here. and we're going to trim off this tab here. Okay. And then let's just take a zip around to the other side of the model to just confirm that that worked the way we needed it to. Yeah, it happened. Kill. All right. So that's good like that. Let's go back over to shaded view, and then we can check out and make sure that this part line looks good. I'll hit escape to kind of drop everything, and yeah, you can kind of see what's up. There's our part line sitting in there. This isn't a real part line, guys, just to let you know. This is a looks like part line. Okay, this is what you do when you've got a presentation coming up and you need to say to your teacher or to your client or whatever, yeah, we think the part line is going to be somewhere around here. And it's just a visual version of a part line. A real part line operates much differently and has even more detail than this. Okay, so there you go. So I want to zoom way out, and I want to go to probably rendered mode to just see how that's looking. It looks okay, you know. It looks a little big in my opinion. I'm all about the super small details, so I would say that this part line's a fatty part line, even at 0.5 millimeter. And if you have a pair of calipers anywhere near you on your desk, like I have one right here, if you pull out 0.5 and then compare that to the model that we're working on here, it makes you feel a lot better about this situation. So even though that looks like a real fat part line in my eyes, it's really a small little scallop out of your model, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. So that's going to be that. Very good. Next thing to do is going to be to just tie a couple of these surfaces together and add some of our final fillets, and then we can call it a day. All right. Let's just do some clicking around here to kind of see what's up with how the surfaces are separated from each other. We've got quite a bit of we've got quite a bit of joining to do here. So let's actually do something like this. Let's grab the whole model like that and go join, and boom, looks like it worked. 148 surfaces together into 2 surfaces. So hopefully this is one surface and that is one surface. Perfect, just the way we wanted it. Switch back over to wireframe mode to just confirm. Yeah, I just wanted to see that our cap here, this orange piece, is saved on its own layer here. So that's that. And then there's a curve in there too, which I want to put all my curves where they belong on the curves layer, so we'll get rid of that. Just keeping ourselves organized as we prepare to kind of finalize this model. It looks like we got a straggler curve in here. I don't know what that's doing. Delete it. Okay, cool. This pink color is getting even more annoying than I remember it, so we'll change it to something a little bit easier to look at. There you go. That'll do. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and start adding some fillets. Let's go to probably ghosted mode I like for fillets, and we'll grab our fillet tool, which is somewhere in the neighborhood here. There we go. Variable rate fillet. Take a look at the fillet size. First fillet we'll do is on this edge right here, and I think this one can be about, I think it can be 2. So let's try 2 and see how that works. Good. Okay. 1 down. Let's just fire off the fillet tool again by hitting the right mouse button and reload that onto your mouse. Change the radius to something a little bit smaller. I think it'll be 0.5 for this next one. It's going to be here. Okay. I'm going to hit undo to undo that one, and I'll reload it, and we'll say 0.75. Okay, that looks a little bit better. And then let's just, you can hear my mouse clicking. I'm putting the fillet tool back on. Say 5.5 for this guy. Perfect. That's that. Everything's looking good. Okay, cool. Wonderful. And then the last fillet will be for this edge here. And so we'll just pop that one up. This one's probably another 0.75. Kinda. That looks okay. It's a little bit chunky for my eye. So why don't we do this? Why don't we do a 0.6? I'm weird about fillets, guys. I just, you know, kind of don't love them if they're too big. We can put a nice little tiny 1/8 of a millimeter fillet right on this edge as well, just to soften it up so we get a little bit of light and shadow on that edge. So change this and go 0.125. That's an 1/8 of 1 millimeter. That's the length of a human hair. So you just get a little tiny sliver of light right there at the top, and that'll be fine. Okay, good. And that's going to be it, okay? So the last thing to do is going to be to just put a cap on the bottom here, and we know how to do that. There's a bunch of different ways, but the way that we've kind of been using is surface from planar curve. Grab this edge down here and just hit enter. And then just make sure to save that surface onto your surfaces layer, change object layer. And we're good to go. That is it. Rendered. Perfect. Oh, maybe one more. Let's just get in here and let's just throw a couple of 1/8 of a millimeter fillets right on this edge of this part line. Yeah, see, that's such a small little thing right there, but it's going to make a difference, I promise. Okay. Cool. All right, good news. One finished model. So this is, like I said, this is a looks-like model. This is a surfacing model. It's a NURB surface model made in Rhino. So the reason we cap it here on the bottom as opposed to digging into all that and adding the, engineering details of the thing, like the threads and the mechanism that holds this piece in place and also blocks water from coming in and out of it when it's on its bottle cap, is because that's what your engineering team is going to do, and that's what is probably going to happen in another program like SolidWorks. So you'd hand over this type of model to your SolidWorks engineering team and they would handle the rest from there. So we're going to go File and go Save, okay? And then we'll go ahead and we'll also save ourselves an IGES file as well, or maybe a step file. So we'll go Save As, and I'm going to just drop down to, here we go, Step, go to Options. That works. This is okay. And in my WaterBottle Rhino file folder here, I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to say step files. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. The step file is what we can open up in SolidWorks and work from there. So, hey, listen, thanks a lot for watching here. And this is the first piece of the puzzle as far as getting this water bottle done. And I think that you should agree that, although it looks easy, there's some tricky little bits to this, but I'm pretty happy with this model. And similar to the Copic marker, we're going to be doing a whole nother series where we take this and we put it into KeyShot and do some cool renderings of it. Kind of like the ones you saw at the start of the series. So thanks a lot, and I'll catch you in the next one. Okay? All right. Bye-bye.